Hello, and welcome to a live stream of DoneJS LA. My name is Chasen Le Hara, and I'm not going to move my laptop in fear of messing up the HDMI connection, but I'm here live with a bunch of people at Codesmith's office in Venice. Say hello. Hey, hey, I'm not alone. All right, and I'm going to share my screen. And present. All right. Just infinity of screen. Okay, so yeah, my name is Chasen Le Hara, and tonight we're going to learn how to build a Tinder-like carousel. So this app that you see on the right, this evil Tinder, you might see some faces or some things that you recognize, some evil characters. So we're going to build this app. It has a like and note button that we can say yes or no. And then it has swiping as well. So if we swipe left, there's this little nope animation that comes up. Or if we swipe right, there'll be the little like. And then when we let go, we go to the next character. So that's what we're going to build. Before we get into it, I want to say thank you to our sponsors. So here where we're hosting tonight is Codesmith. If you're not familiar with Codesmith, definitely check them out, codesmith.io. They are not a bootcamp. They focus on programmers who, especially self-taught, if you're like me and self-taught, and then you want to kind of up your skills and go to that next level of like developing your software engineering, your programming, your machine learning skills, that's all things that they focus on. So definitely check out codesmith.io. They have offices obviously here in LA and then New York and then Oxford University as well. And then my employer, I'd like to thank them, is Bitovi. We're a JavaScript consulting company. We have a wide variety of clients from small nonprofits and startups to Fortune 500 companies that we sign NDAs with and can't talk about. We build apps for them. We have a team of developers, I'm one of them, and an awesome user experience team. So we tackle design. We tackle building applications from both like the design and the development. So check out bitovi.com. And that brings me to like why we're here today and what I do. So I said I'm Chasen. I'm part of the core team that develops a bunch of open source tech for Bitovi. That includes CanJS, DoneJS, CLJS, etc. So we're going to use CanJS today to kind of give us the tools to build our application. And CanJS is a client-side JavaScript framework. It has its roots going back 10 years ago in a framework called JavaScript MVC. So it's been around a long time. But it makes it really easy to build simple widgets all the way up to scaling to large applications. And this is how we build apps at Bitovi. So it has three kind of main principles. And let me make sure that my screen is as large as it can be. OK. So basically, the core concept of CanJS is you build components. And a component is a tag, a custom element tag. So when you put that tag anywhere in HTML, that tag gets upgraded into a custom element or into a component. And it's rendered with a view. So you'll see between the tick marks, this is what we call a can stash view. Who's seen like handlebars or mustache before? Yeah, OK. So it's a similar syntax where wherever you have double curly braces like this, that means that value is going to be replaced with something dynamic. So we've got the double curlies and count. And can stash also has a binding syntax for listening to events. So this on colon will listen to click events, double click, mouse out. Just any DOM event that you can think of, you can put there. And then when that event happens on the element, then a method fires. Then the last part, custom elements are with tags. They're rendered with a view. And then the third part is that's backed by a view model. So a view model, it's just a model for your view. Like you're providing whatever properties and methods that you need in your view. So in this case, we have a count property that starts off with an initial value or a default value of 0. And then we have an increment method so that when the button is clicked, it'll call this method in the view model. And we can put whatever logic we want in there. So in this case, we're just incrementing our count. And that's it. This is how we build like simple widgets. This is how we scale up to entire web applications that are built from these principles of you have custom elements that are components that have a view that are rendered with a view model for all of the properties and actions. And that's it. Any questions, comments before we move on? Yeah.
What's the difference between view? Why would you guys use this versus view.js?
Yeah, so Vue and React and Angular and CanJS and Ember, like there's, yeah, there's, so when Bitovi started 10 years ago, there was no Vue or Angular or Ember or React. So we started developing our own framework, and from there it's grown into what we have today with CanJS. So yeah. There's other companies that contribute to CanJS and other frameworks, but we're the major contributor. So, and why, like maybe a little bit, yeah. And we can definitely get into like specifics of like what are the trade-offs and like why you would pick CanJS. Hopefully, from just going through the building an application today, you'll get a feel for like, oh, what you like about this framework. Hopefully it's all what you like about this framework. Cool, any other questions? No? Okay, so take your laptops, everyone's connected to the internet. Go ahead and go to canjs.com. And on the left-hand side, that's CanJS, CanJS.com. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see a guides link. And then under the recipes section, there's a Tinder carousel. When you click on that, you'll end up on this page. You can also search for it if you're feeling fancy. Search for Tinder, it'll come up. Can I have a thumbs up when everyone's on that page? Go to canjs.com and then guides, and then under the recipes section, there's the Tinder carousel. Everyone good? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not great. Yeah, but do you have another browser? Do you have Firefox or Chrome installed? You don't? Okay.
We're just looking over here. I mean, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, that might be the issue.
Yeah.
If you're able to download a newer version of like Chrome or Firefox, and go from there.
I can just follow what you do too.
Cool, sounds good. Yeah. Okay, so basically how tonight is going to work is we're going to go through all of these steps of building the app that I demoed a little bit earlier. So we'll set everyone up, and then we'll go through these steps of like showing a current and next profile image, adding the, I think it was a heart, I can't remember. What is the like button? Yeah, the like button will add the X note button and make those work. We'll make the like sliding and tracking mouse events work. We'll have the overlays. We're going to do those all in steps. So I'm going to talk about the problem that we want to tackle, give you everything you need to know to try it out on your own. And then I'm going to give you guys 5 or 10 minutes for each step to actually try it on your own, hack away, see if you can get it working. And then we'll go over a solution together. And after that, the site has these really handy copy buttons in the like upper right of all of the code examples. So don't fret if it didn't come up with a solution on your own. It's really easy to just like copy paste and get up to speed. So go down to the setup section. You can do that from like clicking the nav or this nav or just scrolling down to the setup section. And you'll see an almost completely blank CodePen. And click on the Edit on CodePen button in the upper right of that. So that'll open up CodePen. The HTML field should be blank. The CSS, we're not going to worry about styles at all. That's just there for us to utilize. So I'm going to collapse that. But our JS, let me bump this up. JS, we're going to write a lot of JS in here. So we'll expand that up. Cool. Everyone have their CodePen open. You don't have to sign up or anything. Just open it and we'll edit away. Cool. So let's go through what the JavaScript does. It's fairly straightforward. Who has seen the ES6 import syntax before? Who has seen this like import? Yeah. So until recently, the best way to load scripts was with a script tag, and that puts something on the window and you start using it, which isn't great for maintainability or modularity or what have you. So in CanJS, you can use the native import statements. This isn't running through like Webpack or Steel.js or any of the other bundlers. It'll load this file and then import this module out of it. So components is basically all we need to build a CanJS application. So we're gonna make heavy use of component tonight. So the first thing that I want to do is kind of similar to what we had on the homepage. I want us to create a component. We're going to create an evil Tinder custom element. And when that is in our HTML, I want it to render this HTML. So you might tell me, okay, well, I can put that HTML in there and then it's done. But we're going to want to make this dynamic. Like right now, the current and the next, it's all hardcore coded in there. So that's why we're going to want to have that as a component in our JavaScript. So what do we need to know? Okay, so we've been through some of this already. So we can use component, and we'll use component.extend, and we'll set evil Tinder as the tag. Excuse me, as the tag. So when we have brackets evil Tinder in our HTML, the component will take over. And then in our view, we want everything up here. So I would make heavy use of this copy button. You can copy that HTML, and you're going to want to put it in your view. And then view model, we don't need it yet. There's nothing dynamic yet, but go ahead and toss that in there because we're going to be adding properties and methods and stuff pretty soon. So go ahead, take a couple minutes on your own to create the evil Tinder components that has this HTML rendered as its view, and then we'll go over a solution together in a few minutes. Do you want to try to? Okay. And always feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions throughout the night. I'm happy to help. I'm sorry? Yeah, you have a different computer with.
Yeah, I work on a desktop actually.
Gotcha.
I tried to bend it just to do this.
We can actually try and see if we can get it to load. Take a stab. It might just be the styles.
So we remove these side by side, or like on top of each other, like you found.
Oh,
So this will be over there.
change the view.
Oh, change the view. Oh, change view. Oh, here we go. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Make sure I can scroll. No, I'm sorry. I think the browser is just old enough that that it's not going to load. Sorry about that.
That's right.
Who feels like they're coming to a solution? They've got it working. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's most people. Okay, cool. Let's go through a solution together. Who wants to get me started? Who can give me step 1? Or their step 1? There's no actual step 1.
Component.extend.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, so what are the 3 things?
Tag.
Which is evil Tinder. All right.
How was it? With view.
View. Sweet. I'm gonna totally copy paste this from over here. If you're ever frustrated with the alignment in the editor, at least on a Mac, you can hold down the Shift key and then click to another like place in the document, and then you can tab everything all at once. FYI. Okay, so we've got our view, and then what's our last thing? Yeah, let's add that. It's just going to be an empty object. Okay, we don't have anything rendered yet. What's our last step?
The markup.
Yeah. So in our HTML, we'll put evil Tinder. Boom. All right. I'm going to collapse this because we don't need this anyway. All right. So we've got our custom element. We've got our view. It's actually rendering in page. This looks good. Who has questions, comments? Anything you guys want to talk about before we move on to the next step? Nope. Cool. All right. So if you keep scrolling down on the page, you'll see the solution section. I'm gonna just out of habit, I'm gonna copy paste this every time just to make sure I have exactly what's there. So I'll delete what's in the JavaScript and paste in, and it's probably exactly the same, but to make sure we're naming things the same. Okay. Next. Okay. So we want to show. So right now in our app we have this current image and this next image hard coded, and we want to make this dynamic. So we want to have an array of images. So these are all of the URLs to the different characters that we have. So instead of having these hard-coded, we want to put this in our view model and then show a current image and a next image. So our current image will just be whatever is first in the array, and then the next image is what's next in the array. So what do we need to know? Okay, so we already actually talked about this a little bit. So when we have properties in our view model, those are made available to us in our view. So in this example, we add a profiles property. Basically, all of the keys in this object are the properties that we want to make available. So we have this profiles property that's available to our view. And then this bit is CanJS specific. So we're saying the default or the initial value for this property is going to be what's returned by this function. So this little bit of syntax is the getter syntax in ES5, ES6, ES what I don't remember which spec this was added in. So this is saying, okay, this default is a function that returns an array. So in this case, we just have an abbreviated version. We just have the an array of a couple of things. And then the next thing about that is so in this example, the profiles in the view comes from the view model. And then there are helpers for being able to like do stuff in the template. So we're not gonna go through all of the docs, but there's helpers like if and each and things to be able to like do loops or conditionals or that sort of thing. You had a question?
Yeah, sorry, can you go over that again? The profiles and the default as a method?
Yeah, so this view model has all of the like properties and actions that are made available to our view.
Okay.
And then so for properties, they basically have a like type definition. So this is kind of like setting up what that property is going to be like. So we have this default getter is basically whatever the initial value is for the property. There's a couple of other, we'll kind of get into a few other things that we can put in this type definition of like getters and setters and that sort of thing. But to start off, we're just going to have this default method. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. Does it have anything to like? Is there any CORS issue if it's getting images from a different source or anything like that?
There shouldn't be, and we uploaded all of these images to GitHub's server specifically because their server is meant for putting images, wherever you want. So that's why there shouldn't be any issues with loading these. Good question. Yeah.
What is the hashtag?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, in our stash template, wherever we have curly braces or double curlies, that's where like stash is taking over and it's gonna do something special. So like here we have the double curlies and then we're just printing a property value. And that's kind of the most simple case. And then second to that is whenever we have the hash, this means, okay, I'm calling like a helper function that's made available by the like templating engine. So there's a bunch of different helpers like hash each, hash if, hash just various things, and we'll go through a few of these. Does that make more sense? Sweet. Cool. Any other questions before we? Okay, so we've talked about the images that we want to show. We've talked about adding something to our view model to make it available to our view. So one more kind of syntax that you can have in your view model is this getter syntax. So this isn't specific to CanJS. If you've seen the getter syntax in, again, ES5, ES6, I don't remember which spec. This is just saying, okay, this is a property name, and then this is a like getter function for that. So whatever is returned in this function is going to be the value of that property. So we could have done the same thing up here, where this could have been like get profiles and then just returned the array. It's a same or a similar idea. So this is going to be helpful for us because you can imagine if there's a current profile, you might want to make a next profile. And then this is how you can get something from the profiles array and return it as the value. So you can create a like next profile property that gets the like second thing. Cool. Any questions before I let you loose? No? Okay, take a few minutes. Try and make the, let me go back to the HTML. Try and make this, this current image and this next image dynamic with stuff that you put in the view model. So you don't want to have the hard-coded like image source here. You want to have that be some value that you get from the view model. And again, please just put up your hand if you have any questions. I'm happy to explain more. Who feels like they're starting to come to a little bit of a solution?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll go through it together then. Who wants to get me started? Where should I start from here?
The images change where the source is.
Okay. Sorry, say that again.
So in the div class images, to add a class current, and the image source is double inside quotes double curly braces current profile.
Okay. Should we do the same for this guy? I'm going to call this next profile.image. Okay. I like where this is headed. What's next?
Did you need to create getters?
Yeah, let's do it. So should we start with profiles or the current profile and next profile getters?
Oh, I did current next.
All right, let's do that. So we'll do get current profile. So this is a kind of standard syntax getter. So in here we can return whatever we want. Who's got a line for me? What should we return?
Is profiles I get it?
Yeah, so we'll need to define this profiles property, but yeah. So this profiles.get. We'll do the same thing for next profile. So we'll have a getter for it, and then we'll return this profiles.get 1, since that's the second thing in the profiles array. And what's our last one? It's the last little bit that we need.
Right.
Yeah. So we could say like get profiles and return this array. So that's one way of doing it. What we showed in the what you need to know was a little bit of a different syntax of saying, okay, we're going to have a profiles property, and then this object is what defines what that property is like. So in here, this syntax kind of gives us a lot more options of what we can do. So we could have the same thing as the getter syntax with a get method that returns the array. I think what we actually want to do is just define a default value, which is going to be the array. So the difference in a default versus a get is that this is saying this is an initial value. It's not going to change. You can modify this property, but if you need an initial value or a default value, then here's one for you. Whereas the get is saying, anytime you access this property, here's what we're going to return. Okay, so see if this actually works. So in the problem section, it says we can kind of play around with the console to see if this actually made it dynamic, right? It looks the same. I guess we could, one way we could do it is we could remove stuff from here and see if it updates correctly. Okay, so that's one way of testing it. Another way is CodePen makes a console available to us. So in the bottom left, there's this console button. You don't have to do this. You don't have to follow along, but I want to show it. So there's this console button that pops open this little section, and then we can paste in what we had before. So this is saying document.query selector. This is like a native DOM API, native browser API that says, I want to give you a CSS selector, and I want a single element that matches that selector. I want the first element that matches that selector. So we're getting our evil Tinder custom element, and then on it is a view model property, and then we've got all of the data that's in our view model. So the same thing that's rendering the view is in this view model property. So we're accessing profiles, and then we can call shift, which I have a hard time remembering shift and splice the array methods. Shift is the one that pops off the first thing from the first index of an array, or 0 index of an array. So when we run that in our console, that'll actually like modify our view model, which updates the view automatically. I'm going to do that again. Do that a couple times. We're going to write code that does the same thing in a bit. Cool. Any questions before we move on to probably adding like and note buttons? Any questions before we move on? No? Cool. Okay. If you want to, you can do the same thing that I'm going to do every time. Under the solution, there's the copy button, and I'm going to replace all of this. I think it was basically the same thing in a different order, but same code. Okay, we're going to add a like button. Okay, so when someone clicks on the like button, which is this heart, this green heart button at the bottom, we want to console log liked, and then we want to remove the first profile image, the same thing that we were doing in the console earlier. We want to remove the first profile image so it comes off the stack, and then show the next one in the list. So what do we need to know? Well, just like the example on the homepage, we can use on : syntax to listen to whatever event. So we can listen for click events on that like button. And then inside here is the method in the view model that we want called. So this isn't going to like call that method as the template is being rendered. It'll call it once the button has been clicked. So in our view model, we can define an action or a method like this. And this is just kind of standard syntax for defining a method. So we can have do something. It can take arguments. So like in this example, we're passing dance from the view into the view model. And then when that button is clicked, it'll make the alert. And then the last thing, shift. Shift is what you're looking for to pop off the 0 index of something in an array. That's it. Go ahead and take a couple minutes. Any questions before we break for hack? No? Okay, cool. So you want to make this like button actually like do something. Who feels like they've come to a solution? Got a few hands up. Take another minute, and then we'll go through a solution together. All right, who wants to get me started with a solution? What should I do first?
Define the function in your view model.
Let's do it. What do we want to call it?
Call it liked profile, but just like is fine, right?
I'll go with liked profile. Okay, so we've got our method. Inside here, what do we want to do?
This dot profile dot shift, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you want a console log as well, right?
We can do both. So we'll do a console log. I think we had all caps liked, and then this dot profiles dot shift. So we haven't quite gone over. Oh boy.
Whoa.
Oh, that was exciting.
Seems like all of that.
We're having screen issues. All right, there we go. That's okay. Let me switch back to not showing my face. Sweet. And then let's not have this be a million times smaller. Oh. Sorry, guys. Best for. Sweet. Okay. All right. I think we're back on track. Did I get this right? Okay. Okay. So one thing we haven't like 100% talked about, but now is as good of a time as ever. So this inside the inside of like these getters and this action, this always refers to an instance of this view model. So essentially what CanJS does is it takes this view model object and it uses it as like the base for creating new instances of the view model for each component. So in our app, we only have the one instance of, we only have this like one evil Tinder. But if we had multiple evil Tinders in here, they would each have their own instance of the view model. So if we swiped on, I don't know if I can actually show this. So if we like, can I show this? Not yet. Okay. So if we like made modifications in one component, it wouldn't affect the other. It's a new instance of the view model for every like HTML custom element that's in the page. So that's what this refers to. What's that? That's what this refers to inside here. So okay, so last thing we need to do is actually hook this up. So on our like button, I'm gonna add the on:click, and we're gonna call liked profile. So now when we click on the heart, we've got the first one disappearing, and then in our console, we can open up the CodePen console, and we'll see liked for every time. Let me clear that. For every time that we click on the like. Cool. Any questions? Any comments? Nope. Okay. Let's create a nope button. I'll give you guys a minute or two and do basically the same thing. Just hook up the nope button, maybe add a console log that says noped. Actually, I'm going to copy paste the solution so we're all on the same page. Yeah, this one had its method called like. So go ahead and create a working nope button. Who has their note button working? Sweet. Let's make this one work. Okay, so just we'll have our note method. Let's say note. We're going to do the same, this profile shift. We're not doing anything special there. We're just removing the top one. And then on our dis button, we're going to say on click, nope, and call that method. Then when we open the console, we should see when we click liked, we've got liked, and when we click nope, we've got noped. Sweet. Any questions? All right, now we're gonna make this more interactive, not just button clicks. Now, when we swipe on these images, we're actually gonna move them left and right. So let's go through what we need to know for that. Oh, actually, I'm gonna, like always, I'm gonna copy the solution, make sure we're all on the same page. Sweet, okay. So drag and move the profile to the left and right. So when, as the user drags left or right, the image will essentially kind of just move left and right. We're not gonna do, we're gonna keep it simple. We're not gonna do like complete tracking of like wherever your mouse or your finger moves. We're just gonna move horizontally. We want it working on desktop and mobile. So if you were to pull out your phone, this would actually like work on your iOS or Android device. And the element that we want to move is the current one. So we're gonna specifically, we specifically want this div to be the thing that we're moving back and forth. We don't want to move like anything else in our in the DOM. So what do we need to know? Okay, so the first thing is that the way that we're going to move it is just with CSS. So we're going to assign a left style essentially to the image to move it back and forth. So essentially, this would be similar to if you, oh, that is not readable. Oh, that's also not readable. Move this. Okay, so this is the same as saying this div that is the, you can kind of see on the right that it's highlighting the current image. So this div is what we want to manipulate to move back and forth. So if we give it a left of 100 pixels, you can see that it'll jump that way. And then as we change this value, that's how we can have the image like be moving. And then essentially, if we go into negative values, it's the same as like swiping left. So positive, negative values are all allowed here. So we want to do this except with JavaScript, and we want to be able to have that actually track where the mouse is moving. So to do that, oh, sorry. Last thing is that so we can so in our view model we can have like a left property or a how far we have moved property, and then render that in the view with the double curlies. So just like a normal HTML attribute, and then inside there we'll have the double curlies for the view model property. So we'll do that. We'll define how far we have moved as a number. Again, the view model is just whatever is to the right here is just saying like a type definition. So this is a shorthand to say number or string or at any value or what have you. The next thing is that we're going to need to listen for when the current element moves, that current div when it moves. So CanJS has this way of listening for events, or let me take a step back. CanJS has a way of letting your code be notified when the custom element has come alive or has been inserted into the page. So all of these view models are like new unique instances, and when a new one is created for an element that's in the page, this connected callback method is called on your view model, and you're given the custom element. So in our case, this L variable would be the evil Tinder custom element. So this matches the custom elements spec. So this isn't. Basically, CanJS matches what is specified in the custom elements spec. So connected callback lets us know, okay, our element has been inserted into the DOM, which means we can start like doing DOM-related things. So we can get a reference to that div, to this, where is it? To this current div by using the query selector method that's on every HTML DOM element. So that's how we can get a reference to current. And then CanJS gives us a way to listen to events. And before I get into the CanJS part, I want to talk about events. So for years, there were just desktop browsers that had events like mouse over, mouse out, mouse move, mouse, all of the things, right? And then started having mobile browsers, and there was different API that was implemented that were all touch events. So instead of mouse events, it was all touch events. And eventually, most of the browsers came to a consensus to implement what's called the pointer events API. So this is a standard API that essentially melds together the mouse and touch events and puts it into pointer events. So like mouse down, there's a pointer down, or mouse move, there is a pointer move. And of course, not all devices are going to fire all of the same events, right? Like there's, for stuff that would be related to hover, you don't have like a hover state on mobile, right? But for things where there is an analogy, there's pointer events. Every browser except one has implemented this spec. That one browser is Safari. It's not Internet Explorer. It's Safari. Or actually, I don't know if Internet Explorer ever supported it. I know Edge supports pointer events. But Safari on desktop and mobile, so far they have refused to implement this spec. So we can use what's called a polyfill. Who's heard of the term polyfill before? Okay, a few people. So a polyfill basically says, okay, I'm going to write JavaScript to mimic the same APIs that are native to a browser if they were to implement those APIs. So in our CodePen, I actually already set this up. So under settings, under JavaScript, I added this pep.js pointer event. I can't remember what the P stands for. It's a polyfill for Safari. So that's already loaded. If you pulled it out on your phone, on an iOS device, it would just work. So we're going to be able to use these pointer events and just not give any cares about Safari support. So we can listen to these events with some APIs that CanJS provides. So this .listen_to is an API inside of our view model that lets us provide three things: the object that we want to listen to, the events that we want to listen that are being dispatched from that object, and then a callback when those events fire. So in our case, we want to listen for, we want to listen on the current div whenever there's a pointer down, which is like a mouse down or a touch down. I don't know if the event is actually called touchdown, but we want to listen to a pointer down event, and then when that happens, we'll have our code. We'll have a callback called. We already talked about the P stands for Polyfill. Pointer event Polyfill. That's pep.js. There's a couple of attributes that we need. So you noticed earlier when I was dragging with our code as is, like the browser will be helpful and be like, oh, you're like dragging an image. Let me give you that to you so you can put it somewhere else or whatever. We do not want the browser to do that. So there's a couple of attributes that we can add. So there's touch action on mobile devices, and then draggable false is what we can use for desktop browsers to say, don't give me the default dragging behavior. Let us handle it on our own. And then so inside, we already talked about like listening to pointer down events. So inside of our callback, we have access to this event variable that's passed to our callback. Event has the super useful property of client X, which is the current position of the pointer device, mouse or finger or what have you. So this is what we can use to see where the mouse is currently. So that's going to be super helpful because when there's a pointer down event, we can grab the event.clientX and have that be our starting place. And then when we receive any other pointer events for the movement of the mouse, that's how we can calculate the delta between our starting place and then wherever the user currently is, which is how we can do the left positioning, essentially. So this will be, so in pointer down, we can listen for that to find out the initial value, and then we can listen to pointer move to when the mouse is actually moving or your finger is actually moving across the screen. This is a little bit different. So pointer move. So here we're listening on documents. Anyone want to guess why we would listen on document instead of current?
The pointer's not going to be moving current div.
It will be for a while, and then eventually you're going to be moving off of it, or you would otherwise be moving off of where it is initially positioned, and then you lose track of those events. So that's why we want to listen anywhere in the document body. We want to listen for a pointer move, and that gives us access to that same client X on the event. Okay.
So what would happen if you put it as current? If the mouse started somewhere outside of the picture's frame, you would be able to record the text value?
Yeah, which I think for us, it matters that if you start dragging and then if you drag off of where the image would be positioned, then you're not going to get those events fired. So that's why it matters in our case. That was a lot that we just went over. So I want to take a quick recap. So what we want to do right now is we want to add that style, that left style, so that we can move the current image left or right. And then we want to set up this the property in our view model. We want to set up our connected callback so that we can add these this.listen_to callbacks, and we want to listen to pointer down as our start, and pointer move for as the user is moving. And there's a couple of HTML attributes that you'll need to add to the image to make sure that you don't get the default dragging behavior. it's going to be real awkward because at this point, there's no like pointer up or whatever the event is for like letting go. So when you have this working, it's just going to keep on, like after pointer down, it's just going to keep on following your mouse. That's okay. We'll do that in the next step. Any questions before you hack on your own? Cool. We'll take longer for this. We'll take like at least 5 or 10 minutes. And please feel free to raise your hand if you have questions.
Thank you. Yeah. So on the last part where we had console log, just like,
Yeah.
do you think that for the regular Tinder, that with ours with console log, what the first user said, based on that, how do you think they connect, like the person one to the profile that's selected? Do you think that they add that information? Like we have ours here as the whole, the 10 profiles array, with like the individual information, and this is like pretty much the same interface. So where is, do you think that they send that like through, like to connect the two people? Do you think that actually?
Yeah. So to connect the two people in terms of like what actually happens when you're like, swiping or what have you. I'm sure. So I'm guessing that they're loading the. So they've got their like backend API service for actually like getting all of the profiles. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the basic mechanics of like fetching a list of like 10 or 20 like profiles is similar to how like we have our array of profiles, and then as people are swiping, they're doing the same thing of like remove from their list of like local profiles that the device has, and then when a person likes or swipes left or right, then they're sending that. They're making an API call. So we put in a console log, but they'd be making an API call to say, okay, this person liked or didn't like. And it's been a while since I've used Tinder, but if I remember correctly, it'll immediately tell you if it's a match.
Yeah.
Okay. So they could do that a couple different ways, where maybe after the swipe is when they make an API call to know if it was a match or not, or maybe they already know, maybe they already have it in clients that if they swipe right, it'll be a match, or if they swipe no, then it just keeps on going through this.
And then there would probably be a different API for the messaging part where it's like, okay, both the wicked witch and then both swipe right, and so then that would grant them access to
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. That would be my guess. Yeah. Yeah. Who else has questions that I can help?
Yeah, I just had a question on, I noticed sort of the connected callback, but that's like a reserved word by the framework. So what if you wanted a second callback? Like that doesn't exist, but to be used on the same.
So a second callback, like what? How do you mean?
You see how it's built in here, like query selector, and it's just current. You just add more variables. So like, you select something called like another div or whatever. Just put another
So
function.
any logic that involves a callback, you put in here.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
and you could actually start breaking logic up. So like we're just gonna throw everything into connected callback, but remember, so this is the instance of the view model. So you could have other methods that are defined in the view model that you call from connected callback instead of
Oh, I see.
like,
Okay. Yeah.
having like
Just like
lines and lines and lines.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what it is. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll start going through a solution together. Who wants to get me started? What should we do first?
You can change markup.
Yeah, let's do it. What am I changing?
So adding the style property value
Yeah, so what was this called? How far we moved, maybe? That's fine. I'll run with this. All right. So we add the style property to the current div, the class current div. So we'll have this how far we moved property in our view model. Let's go ahead and add that. So at the bottom, I'm just going to tack things onto the bottom. So at the bottom, we're going to have how far we moved, and it's a number. We won't do anything with that. Okay, what's next? What should we do next?
You have the touch action none and drag.
Yeah, let's do that because otherwise we're not going to actually be able to drag. So touch action, it's touch action none and then draggable false. Okay, sweet. What's next?
And that turns off the default properties of
Yeah, so now, so like with draggable false, now when we drag, we don't get the like default browser behavior. If we remove this draggable, that's where it like it'll show the dragged image for us.
we're gonna add the connected callback.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we're gonna say connected callback. We're given the element, which is the evil Tinder custom element. So in here, we're going to want to listen for the pointer down and the pointer move events. So let's say this dot listen to. First we're going to need the current element. So we'll say current is l.querySelector. Basically, this is saying, like, we could do document.querySelector, and then this would give us all of the the first current in the entire document, but we want it specifically for our element, for our custom element. So if there were multiple instances of it in the page, then we'd get the right one. So we're going to do current, and then we're going to listen to, we want to listen on current for the pointer down. And then we have our callback. So when this is called, that's when the user actually presses down. Okay, what should we do next?
Define a variable to keep track of the next offset.
Yeah, okay, so we could do how do we want to do this?
We call it start X, and that's going to be starting.
Okay, so we'll have start X, and then we'll assign start X to client X. Is that right? Client X? Okay, cool. Okay, so now we have when the user presses down. What's next?
To listen to pointer move.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm gonna copy paste this, move it around. Okay, so now we want to listen to pointer move, and then this is where we can set the how far we moved property. So how far we moved is the current client X minus our starting client X. Okay, so that should update as we move. Is that it? Is that everything we need? Hey, yeah, that's working. And as expected, we can't let go. We're just forever holding on to it. Okay, cool. Was there anything else that we needed to add? I think that was it. Yeah. Who has questions about what we just did? Questions, okay. It's either a really good sign or a really bad sign. Okay, I'm gonna, as always, I'm gonna go down to the solution. I'm gonna copy and replace everything in here. just to make sure everything's consistently named. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we want to show the like and then go a certain do is when the user goes more than 100 pixels to the right, that means they're swiping right, and we want to show the like animation. And then on the other side, if we go negative 100 pixels, then we want to show the nope animation. So we'll start off with just the like. And the way we do this is we already have the like CSS and the styling. And I'm just going to hack this in here real quick. This is not what you're going to do. It's similar though. Okay, so we have this results div, and then if we have it with liking, if we have it with the liking class, that means that it'll show up, I think. Do I need to save? Yeah, so. Oh, thank you. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Good catch. Okay, so when the result div has liking, it'll show the like. When it has nope, what is the class? We'll get to that later. Noping? Is it noping? Yeah, it's noping. There we go. Okay, so obviously we want that to be dynamic. So we only want to have this liking class there when they're actually liking. So we can do that with the hash if syntax. So this says if this value in your view model is truthy, if it's true or some true like value, then go ahead and add this class, and then we can define a property for liking, for determining if we've moved more than 100 pixels. Give you guys a minute to do this on your own. While you're at it, go ahead and do the noping as well. Liking and noping. Who has a solution for liking and noping? Okay, we'll take another minute or two. All right, who wants to get me started with a solution? Go for it.
So in that div class result, instead of that, you want to put a statement after what it's called.
Yeah.
CanJS, but
Yeah, we can call it an if statement. What are we gonna call it? Double up on liking. Okay, so when liking is true, we'll add this liking class, which means I should have minimized this earlier. Which means down here we can have our liking. We'll add it with the rest of the getters. So we can have our liking getter, and then here we'll return if, what's our property name? How far we moved? What do we want to return? This dot, how far we moved is greater than, equal to 100?
yeah.
Cool. We'll do the same thing for noping. Make a noping. And it's going to be negative 100, is that right? Okay, cool. And then we'll add our noping class up here too. So we've got liking, and we've got noping. All right, let's give this a spin. There we go, beautiful. And then if we go to the right, we still need to add that down, or listening for up, not down, but listening for up. But when we move, where's the boundary? When we move far enough, we've got both. Cool. Any questions? Comments? Well, I'm going to do the same thing as always. I'm actually going to go down. So these were two different sections. I'm going to go past noping, make sure I have everything up to date. Okay, now we're going to get to when we release our mouse, we want to let go, and either if we've swiped far enough right, then we want to log liking, and if we've swiped far enough to the left, then we want to log nope or noping. And then do nothing if we haven't dragged more than 100 pixels in either direction, right? So if we drag far enough in either direction, then we'll like or nope. And then the last little bit is we want to make sure that we reset things so that when the user has another pointer down, that it's brand new and we're not maintaining any of the state from the previous mousing around. So what do we need to know? Okay, so we've got our pointer up event for listening for mouse up. And then our last thing is we have this listen to, and then the opposite of that is stop listening. So this is a CanJS API that says, I want to remove the event listeners from a particular object, or I want to remove a specific event listener from a specific object. So when we, in our code right now, we've got this listen to on the document as we're moving around, but we don't need that listener anymore when the mouse has gone up, right? So when it's down, that's when we care about the pointer move events, but as soon as they go up, we don't care how they're moving their mouse around the screen because it shouldn't be moving anything, right? We only care if they've started a pointer down. So, so that's the last little bit. So that leaves a lot of logic up to you guys for what should go in the callback for a pointer up and when you call stop listening. So I'll leave you to it for a few minutes. If you have questions, please just raise your hand.
Yeah. I don't know.
It feels like they're coming up with a solution. Ish. You guys want another minute? We'll go through it. Cool. Want me to move those out of the way, or are you?
Oh, no, that's all right. I don't want to bug you. I just wanted to snag a few things.
Oh yeah, please do.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to get me started on the solution? What should I do first?
Pointer up.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna steal some of this code. Okay. So I'm gonna listen to pointer up on not the document, or sorry, not current, but on the document. For the same reason that we listen to pointer move wherever, I'm gonna listen to pointer up wherever they've ended up on the document. Okay. What's next?
You have to redefine how far we have moved.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna steal that code and then update it here. So we're gonna update this dot how far we have moved with the current client X minus the starting X. And then what that does is when we haven't gotten into CanJS's observables and how like all of this stuff works. When you set this property, anything that depends on this property's value will be rerun and updated to have the new value. So when we call this dot how far we have moved and give it a new value, anything, oh dear, anything that, oh, that is not what I wanted. Anything that depends on it is going to be updated. So like and nope methods, no. But inside here, inside of our liking getter and our noping getter, this will, because this value changed, these getters will be rerun and those values will be updated. So that's kind of how we get all of the dynamic parts of CanJS, is that it figures out everything that your code depends on, all of the observables, and then when one of them changes, it only updates the things that are listening to it. So when how far we have moved changes, that doesn't mean that the getter for current profile and next profile are going to rerun. That's only going to happen when something inside it, like this dot profiles, changes. So given that we've updated this, what can we do now?
Well, yeah, so you want to check if it's greater than or equal to 100 for like less than equal to 100 for this.
Yeah, so we could write out, what is it? This, how far we have moved is greater than or equal to 100. That would mean that we would say, is it liking or is it like? Like,
yeah.
Okay, and then we could do if that is less than or equal to negative 100, and then do this dot. Nope. Is that right? Okay, so we could do that, but since this has updated everything that depends on it, we can just do this dot liking and this dot noping, because those properties in our view model are automatically going to be updated with the latest. So we can reuse stuff that's in our view model whenever we want. Okay, so and then our else case is essentially we do nothing. We don't like or nope if neither of those conditions are true. What's last? Or second to last, I guess.
Resetting how far.
Yeah, we'll reset. Yeah, we'll kind of reset everything. So we'll say how far we moved is 0, and then we'll stop listening as well. So this stop listening to the document. So both the pointer up and the pointer move listeners are going to be torn down when we call stop listening. It's going to tear down all of the document related listeners that we set up. And it'll keep this one because the element is still alive. One nice thing is you don't have to manually with this like listen to syntax with CanJS. Usually you'd have to call like add event listener and then remove event listener to tear everything down correctly. Like if the element is removed from the page. With CanJS's like this dot listen to, when this component gets torn down, it'll remove all of the listeners on that component and then any of its children as well. So that's why we don't have to do any stop listening to current. Will it work? Can I let go? It might be too small. Oh, not quite. Did it not refresh?
Since you're out of the, what's it called? Define the pointer up outside of the current event. Does that listen to pointer down?
I just, sorry, I just removed everything that I had just done. All right, let's go through this. So yes, you're right. I had defined pointer up outside of the pointer down, but I actually needed it inside of pointer down, so so it would be updated correctly. Cool. So this should work correctly now. There we go. Sweet. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
So the if statements that are on 82 to 86.
Yeah.
How are those compared to the ones in the markup at class result?
So the markup up here, the if liking and if noping, is that what you're referring to? Pretty similar, because the if stash helper is basically serving the same purpose as like an if JavaScript statement. The kind of big difference is that in our template, this is being rendered with our view model. So we could do this dot liking and this dot noping. It's redundant because our current context is the view model anyway. And otherwise they're the same. And then down here, the connected callback gets with the view model instance as the this or as the current scope or context, which is why we can do like this dot liking and this dot noping.
Because yeah, like on 83 we have like this dot like, and then above it we have the get like and get noping, which define like the parameters for left and right.
Yep.
But this code would be optimized because you put all of the if statements for those in the JavaScript, like in the view model, instead of putting it in the model. Well, you wouldn't put like all of that other stuff.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. So one of the things that we advocate for is building unit testable view models that have all of your logic. So your view, like our view is pretty straightforward in that it has minimal conditionals, and it's basically just printing out values and then listening to events. So it's not as complex. Our view model kind of contains all of that logic. So we can create a new instance of the view model in a unit test, and then test like, okay, if I set these properties, that it does certain things, or you can call different methods. And it's just, it's easier to have that kind of in the view model and testing it versus rendering a whole component and then simulating different states and events and that sort of thing.
Oh, perfect. And then have you had apps that you've worked on that had multiple JavaScript files for this?
Yeah, so most of them have, like, every component has its own, will have its own file. We usually, like, when you're actually building apps, you break this off the template into a different file. So you get like syntax highlighting and stuff like that. So yeah, we heavily promote having like a folder for each component that has the JavaScript and the template and its tests and like a demo page and kind of all of the stuff related to a single component. Yeah, cool. Any other questions?
How would you handle hitting an API working with this component? Like instead of having your images, obviously there's URLs there, but if you want to grab those somewhere like asynchronously or something, how do you?
Yeah, so the type definitions have a few different ways that you can define values. So we talked about default. Let's say we wanted to have this be asynchronous. So we could, the API for that is basically our get function is given the last value that it was set to, and then a function for updating that value. So we could do whatever, like AJAX request to get the data, and then resolve with that data, and then this property would be updated with that data. Yep. And you can go from really simple, like I should have said, like, just using the fetch API to do something like that, or use whatever utility that you want to. CanJS provides stuff for modeling your data, similar to like how a view models data. Modeling the server data, and then doing fancy things for like if you define an endpoint that is REST-like, then CanJS can do special things of like, all right, I can assume that when I do a GET request, it'll be a list of this, and when I have the instances will be created into like real model objects that have whatever properties that you define, and just go down the rabbit hole. But the most simple thing would be like in a getter to have fetch and then get the data. Good question. Cool. Any others? All right, we'll wrap up. There's one more step. You'll notice that there's a bunch of characters here, but we eventually do get to the end and it's just a broken image, right? Because eventually we get to a current profile, but there's nothing in profiles left, right? So let's fix that. So what do you need to know? Page, there's a URL for an empty profile, and then you basically want to define that property and then use that when you've run out of images. Give you guys a couple minutes and we'll go through a solution. Yeah.
Using just before we were describing CanJS for the Ajax or the fetch, would that be double syntax or something you use for authentication?
Yeah, so authentication is interesting because there's a lot of different parts to it, right? Because mostly in an app you have like a single session for the logged in user. So you could create a view model essentially, or a model object that represents the user or their session. And then on that, you could have all of the requests for like signing in or doing whatever you need to authenticate them. And then that object you would probably pass around in your application, because there'd probably be lots of components that would want access to the current user's information. So we didn't get into it at all today, but let me expand this a little bit. Because we only talked about like having this one custom element. But essentially when you build CanJS applications, it's just many of these custom elements, and you pass data between them. So the syntax is like HTML, where you could say like on evil tender, if I wanted to pass in the session, I could say session : from, and then the like session objects that's in the like outer context, whatever is rendering that component would provide the session. So like if this, let's say this is going to be recursive, but let's say like in this view, we had another component, then in the view model, we could have a session defined, and then we'd be able to pass that to a child component for them to be able to like see the user's info or what have you.
And then like their own profile after.
Yep, exactly.
And that would go. It would go in the top level.
Yeah. So most applications. Yeah. So most of the time you have like one like top level app component that has, usually it's routing info and session info. Kind of gets stored in that top level app component. So
yeah, it sounds similar to like a kind of a mix in between like what DoneJS does with the different routers.
yeah,
And then has the core functionality, and then elements of like a front end framework where it dynamically generates it all of it in React, but
Yep.
consolidates it.
Yep. Good question. Let's go through a solution. Who wants to get me started?
We could define the, or you change the current profile and next profile functions or methods.
Yeah, let's do it. How are we changing them?
So actually, I see here that they didn't work.
Yeah. What did you do?
It wasn't working for me. I tried that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure why. but yeah, I see they're doing or, which is going to return the empty profile. If there's no item in 0, 1 position.
So I'm guessing you had something like assigning profile to a variable, and then if profile, return it, and then otherwise like return an empty profile, something like that. Am I totally off base of what you were trying?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, which totally works. You can assign it to a variable, check if it is truthy, and otherwise return another property. The shorter syntax that the guide shows is saying return this or return that value, which in JavaScript, it'll be if this is a falsy value, then it'll fall through to the other side of the or condition. So it's just a shorter way of doing that same if-else syntax. So we can do those for both of it, for both current profile and next profile. And then I'm just going to steal this this definition. Oh, that's not right. Okay. So we can define our empty profile. That's an object that has image. Now, when we get to the bottom of this, we should see, there we go. And we see our empty profile. Sweet. Any questions or comments before we go? All right. I want to thank everyone who is here. Obviously, you guys asked a lot of great questions. So thank you for coming. Everyone who's watching on the live stream or watching afterwards, thanks for watching. And we'll be back in a month. We do one of these every like 5 or 6 weeks. And we're always building new apps for these. So if there's something that you're interested in, like in learning how to build, let me know, either in the DoneJS LA meetup group, leave a comment there, or talk to me afterwards or message me on Meetup. So thanks, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Hey, I'm VJ. Thanks for coming to the meetup today. I'm the organizer for JavaScript LA. I wanted to just personally thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, I'd love for you to subscribe to our channel. We're slowly but surely making lots of little video content for you guys to enjoy and soak up, especially if you want to get better at programming. I'd love for you to be on our Slack channel too. Over 800 users. The link is right here, jsjoin, jsjo.in. If you forget, it's really simple. If you have questions for this meetup, or questions you didn't get to ask, or because you couldn't make it, we'd love to have you just post it in our Slack group. So if you're a newbie, don't worry. It's a good place to go. There's a lot of great engineers all connected around LA and Orange County. So I hope to see you there.